Welcome to the Compassionate Leaders Circle podcast. For thousands of years, the sages have known that compassion is a powerful force for good. In the last 2 decades, compassion scholars caught up with these sages, proving that there is an ROI to building loving communities and businesses. This podcast features leaders who can teach us about the power of compassion. Well, welcome, Eduardo, to the Compassionate Leaders podcast. I'm so happy to have you today. Why don't you tell our listeners who you are and your role and where you're located?
Absolutely. First, I just want to thank you, and it's lovely to be with you. I am Eduardo Vilaro, and I am the Artistic Director and CEO of Ballet Hispanico. Today, I find myself in Irvington, where I live. Irvington, New York, that is, because I know there's an Irvington, New Jersey.
Well, Eduardo and I got to meet for the first time at the beginning of 2020, and I thought it'd be nice to bring him back for the sequel for a couple of reasons. I'm a big fan of his work and his company's work, and I want everyone possible to know about it and how they can help. We're starting something new this year called the Compassionate Leaders Awards. And Eduardo, you've been nominated to be a Compassionate Leaders Award recipient.
Goodness.
I'm surprising him live here on the podcast. We want to shine a bright light on people that are doing beautiful work and compassionate work and passionate work. So congratulations for your nomination, and we'll be inviting you to the virtual awards ceremony that is on January 15th.
Well, thank you. I am honored. What a beautiful award for anyone to be nominated for.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. So why don't you start with a little bit of your background, where you were born and what you did before you ran this beautiful company?
It's so funny that you asked me about my background, because I was just putting together my mother's black bean recipe. And as I was writing it, I was just pondering on this small little treasured memory that has been a glue for me and the culture I left behind. It has been a constant, in an immigrant experience, there are no constants. There's constantly shifting sands. Very much, I tell people that we're going through a pandemic. This is how most immigrants feel on a daily basis. Everything changes, danger, all that good stuff. And so I just want to tie it back that was so beautiful to kind of just be in that space, the different ingredients. And so I guess my ingredients of who I am is I came from Cuba in 1969 with my family, and we settled in New York City in the Bronx. And I went to public school, and then from public school to a parochial school, a Catholic school, and found my love of dance in a production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown that last year in 8th grade. And it followed me, that need to perform through high school. And even though I was in a very strict kind of all boys Catholic school, I found every way I could perform, either if it was in a production or in the choir. And finally, at the end of that, I had to come out as a dancer to my family, which was devastating to my father. But it started me on this journey, and then I continued to seek that out. I became a dance student at Adelphi University and got my BA in dance there. And shortly before I graduated, joined Ballet Hispanico as a dancer. And from there, it's just been a relationship with Ballet Hispanico ever since.
Well, we're going to get to this wonderful organization and how you can watch some of these amazing dancers dance. Part of my career has been helping people find their calling and follow it. And it's often difficult in a family that doesn't have artists to become the transformational artist. So could you tell us more about the story of telling your parents that you wanted to be a dancer, and tell me a little bit about what they did for work?
Well, my parents were immigrants, so they were hardworking, and they did all kinds of things. My dad was an engineer, so he immediately started going back to school and learning English and trying to transfer his trade to English, and he was very successful at that. My mom was a little bit of everything. She worked different jobs. I mean, when we first came here, she was a cleaning lady. From there, in Cuba, she was a cosmetician. So then she finally got her license and lived and worked for many years in that business. They were hardworking people. They taught us that. They handed that down to us, that value. And coming out to them as a dancer was, by that time, sadly, my parents did divorce. By that time, they were divorced. I had to tell them separately. So not only do you have to do it, but you have to do it twice. Right? It's like, come on, everybody. So my mom she was, and still is, always thrilled. I think she should have been a performer in her own right, but because she loved dance and music, and she went to the Tropicana often as a young lady in Cuba. So Cuba has that rich tradition of performance venues and music, and so she really connected to that. My dad took a long time for him to say, wow, you've really made a lot of this career of yourself. It took a long time. Yeah.
Well, I think this is another thing we have in common. We'll do for dinner another time. But my dad was an engineer, and my mother was definitely an artist. So I understand. And my dad is still wondering what I do, because
Isn't that interesting? Well, the thing for them, it was that I was the one who was doing really well in school, and I got into all my schools through scholarships. That's the only way we could afford. I was the first one in my family to finish not only one, but 2 degrees. And so, their dream for me was everybody, immigrant's dream: a doctor, a lawyer, a professional. Right. I am a professional.
Yes, you are. You
I'm just not
absolutely are.
that professional.
You're not that picture. Carl Jung said, if you want to understand someone's vocation and the struggles with it, you should look at the unrealized dreams of their parents.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So fortunately, you followed your heart, and you followed your own path, and you found yourself at this company. So could you tell us the history of Ballet Hispanico?
Absolutely. Ballet Hispanico was founded in 1970 by educator and choreographer Tina Ramirez. She wanted to give voice to the Latinx artists at a time where we were still struggling to be heard and to be removed from stereotype in the media. We were the maids, the thieves, the gangs. And so she saw New York. New York was turbulent at that time. New York was burning at that time. There was, a white flight happening from the manufacturing jobs. The city was left to burn. There were swaths it was rough for the BIPOC communities that were left here with that. And so she saw an opportunity to serve Black and brown young people by lifting them up through this beautiful art form that she loved, that I love. And she began with a handful of lovely young ladies that to this they say, this saved my life from what could have been. A company arose from that, and support arose, and people came together. At the beginning, I because we're celebrating 50 years, I've been doing a lot of research and looking at our archive, and it was such a beautiful community effort. It's one of those things that small town Americas think about. The grandmothers were making costumes. The families would bring food in while rehearsal was going on. It's such a beautiful microcosm of a community. And so that's how this organization was born. It quickly became well known. She developed dancers to a very high level, and then all of a sudden they were performing works of very high stature choreographies. I came into the organization in the late 80s, and I am the second, kind of third generation of dancers there. By that time, we were touring. It was a high time of touring in the dance field. Let me call it the golden age. There was a lot of support from the government before things went awry, when things changed. and the culture wars started. Artists that wanted to speak like Keith Haring and say their truth, and you had exhibits that had issues. Anyway, by the time I got there, it was an established organization that was growing, and I grew with it. I immediately was interested in what Tina was doing in education. I became an educator because of Tina and her mentorship. And she urged me, sometimes in a very, like a parent would, just go do this, right? No instructions. I'd like you to manage that. Okay, great, let's do it. So, you learned by trial and error and fire. And, but yet there was always the ability that she gave to me was what was important. Mm. And sometimes mentors are that way. They just hand situations over to you because somehow or other they know you're going to handle it.
So you've had three. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So you've been there a while. You came, like you said, second generation. So I'm curious, like when you look back at being a dancer versus being a teacher and now leading the organization, tell me a little bit about your experience through those three lenses.
Well, when you're a young artist, you're focused on your technique, your artistry. And I'm not knocking this down. I think it's important at a very young age to be so tunnel focused because it really produces work. And there's a passion to it that's necessary for the stage. But then when you start branching out, you start seeing a larger picture. You're witnessing that your actions touch people in deeper ways than just an artistic way. And your actions change people or can be transformational for people as an educator. And you're also aware of your community in a different way. And so you start a very reciprocal relationship with your community. It's not transactional. I'm performing for you. And so that changes. And then all of a sudden, when you're in a leadership role, well, that lens widens up even more. And then you feel a responsibility. And that's pretty much what wakes me up in the morning. Yeah. I have such a responsibility to younger dancers, younger students, the Latinx community, my city-state world. You start, so the perspective, of course, would change, but it really widens.
So this has not been an easy year for any leader, and your vision for 2020 had to change when the pandemic came. I actually talked to a class last night. I have this new phrase. I don't know if I made it up or if I stole it from someone, but I have this idea of vision resilience, where you have a vision and then you have to, as a leader, have a new vision and then communicate it to your team. So I know you went through this process this year. So I'm curious about what your vision for your anniversary year was looking like in January and what it became in March and what it's been like.
Oh, wow. First, I want to say that I really love that vision resilience. And I think that whether you're an artist or not, we should all tap into that and know that we have a vision. I started this 50th anniversary really wanting to explode the celebration. We had performances ready. I was interested in developing a children's book. We had a tour that we wanted to do, a 5-borough tour and give free performances to everyone. We were looking at expanding the company, dancers, adding more dancers. We were in the midst of creating a full-length ballet as well in preparation for the 50th celebration. And doing some works that we could never had. We were at the moment where we could do these specific works, and I had asked choreographers to allow us to do these works. It was going to be a grand, spectacular 2-week season at the Joyce, and that was a month before, when everything, about March 13th, we were going to be April 23rd, I thought, at the Joyce. So everything got shut down, and like everyone, we scrambled and came together and thought, what were we going to do? So what we did was made sure everyone was safe, called everybody back home from tour. The dancers, fortunately, didn't have any work anymore. So we developed an online platform called Be Unidos, or Be United, and started doing daily activities and interactions with our constituents. For me, it was, how do we stay this community feeling? How do we keep it alive? Not only within, because we need to keep it within the staff, but how does that expand out into the vibrancy that we've already begun? And it's been very fruitful, actually, and very good for us, and also another tool that we'll need to learn to wield after all of this is done.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have found we have, because of the slowdown, we had to go deeper into our imaginations and create
Oh
and
my.
innovate, right? So tell us more about how we access all these wonderful online dance performances.
So visit our webpage, ballethispanico.org, and I'll just give you a little bit. Like we have motivational Mondays, we have take a class Tuesdays, Wepa Wednesdays that we're showing different repertory works. In fact, there's a Wepa Wednesday coming up December 23rd that is going to be lots of fun. And we have Thursdays, our therapy Thursdays. We had things like yoga classes and meditation. And then Fiesta Fridays, or Flashback Fridays, we did a lot of work, bringing back some of the things, not only through chats and videos, but also some archival information about our 50 years. So we continue to do all that work. And in fact, we're in the midst of a fundraiser for our dancers. So our dancers have been without work. And so we're doing our end of the year is all about them. So the funds will go to supporting the work that they lost. And, that's been fun too, because we've been really telling their stories. And it's so beautiful to be able to share personal. Sometimes it's all about the organization and not about the individual. And this is about the individual, which is really important.
And your dancers look like they're spread across the world right now. They're not all in New York together. They're different places, right? So,
well, we have a few dancers who are not from New York, someone from Italy, someone from Brazil. So yeah, they're spread out.
so is there a plan yet for when live performances happen, or is it too soon to create that plan?
I love talking about these plans because it's constantly shifting plan. And right now we are planning that in the spring, we'll open part of the school of dance with protocols set in place, not the whole school, because then it's too many people in our headquarters, in our building. And then from there, the company will come in during the spring. We're not touring or performance, but we're going to do some beautiful work, maybe film it, share it with people. But it's about getting them back in. So right now, I told someone just today, we're puddle jumping, right? We're going from one to the other. We're trying, and hopefully we land on the lily pad and not the puddle. And we're finding different ways of adapting. And I seriously doubt that we will be in a theater even in the fall of 21. So our virtual world will still be live, so we're planning a lot of that. But certainly spring of 22, we'll be back.
I'm going to be there for that, for
Oh,
sure.
yes.
I'm excited about that. So what did you learn about yourself and being a leader this year, Eduardo?
Oh, wow. What a question. I keep learning that even though I have an administrative side to me, that this art form, dance, gives me so much to lean on to. When you're a dancer, the resilience is in practice, is in what you do on a daily basis. And so I know that I have a practice, both on the artistic side and the administrative side, which keeps me going. You're also able to course correct quickly or be flexible. And I think that has really helped me during this time. The artist in me is not gone. It's never gone, no matter what you do. I think, and if we just what I've tried to do is stay aware that that's what I'm doing. I'm just being an artist right now.
Interesting.
I'm developing, I'm practicing, I'm being in process with other people. I'm learning how to change that process, improvise, reflect, and share. So those things really come into place because that's what the art form gives you.
Yeah, I think it helps. I talk to a lot of people that have athletic or artistic backgrounds now, and I feel like that both, and I think that as a dancer, you're both really. You're part of a team sport, and
Yeah.
And you're an artist, and flexibility is a metaphor, but it's also the reality of your art form. So I love that you can lean into your artist and your dancer and dance through this crisis and find yourself at the other side. We're cheering you on. And one of the reasons I also wanted Eduardo here is just to remind people that we need the arts. And as we look to support businesses and governments, we need to remember, President Biden, are you listening? That our arts are soul, and Ballet Hispanica is an important part of the soul of this country. And at this time when we are honoring diversity more and moving into a time where brown and black people and people that are from different countries get more of a voice, and it's really important that we figure out how to support you individually, but also as a country.
I'm glad you said that, and it's absolutely right. And for me, the reason why it's essential and we need to support it is because it helps us exactly with these problems. The arts allow us to be uncomfortable in safe spaces, which is your own space, your mind, your intellect. When you are experiencing music, when you are experiencing theater or dance, you are experiencing something that might make you feel uncomfortable or comfortable or joyous, right? But without the trappings or the scaffoldings of the structures of society. And so if we don't have that, then our mind is always locked into these social structures, and we can't grow. And so the arts allow us to grow. It's not just about changing perspective. It's about growth and the ability to dialogue with each other about our differences and our similarities.
I love that arts give us a place to be uncomfortable in a safe space. I think that is beautiful and true and important. Eduardo, thank you for your time today. I think we'll leave it there. I don't think we could have a better wrap up to our conversation. And congratulations on your nomination as a Compassionate Leader of the Year.
Thank you so much.
We'll be sending you more information about that, and we'll be sharing. You can go to compassionateleaderscircle.com to see how you can see that virtual awards ceremony in January. And I hope you have beautiful holidays. And I think I need to get your mama's black bean recipe. So
I'm going to send it right over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Compassionate Leaders podcast. You can learn more about us at compassionateleaderscircle.com. Please join us each week as we shine a light on compassionate leaders making a positive impact on their communities and the world.